How you doing? My name is Anthony Nolan, and I am here with the comptroller, Sean Scanlon, who used to be a state representative, by the way, but he has moved up to become comptroller to make a difference in the state of Connecticut. And we're here just to touch on some new things that is happening in Connecticut. So welcome, Sean. Thank you for taking the time.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yes. I wanted to just touch base on the Connecticut Municipal Employee Retirement System. You did come to New London, and we did have a press conference there, but I just wanted to talk a little bit more about it to give people a better understanding about it, especially the amount of money that New London is looking to save from this program. Can you first give people an explanation of the system?
So as comptroller, I run what's called the CMERS plan. It's the Connecticut Municipal Employees Retirement System. And when I took office in January of this year, my team told me that the problem was that the town's contribution rates to participate in MERS had gone up by 75% in the last 5 years. And what that means for a community like New London, which is already a community that has challenges when it comes to its financing, is that city councils and mayors have to make tough decisions about, well, we can only get this money from somewhere. We can raise taxes or we can cut services. Those are really the only two options that a municipality has. And so what I did was I put together a group of labor leaders and management leaders, and we sat down and said, we got a problem. Our towns can't afford this anymore. And by the way, we don't want towns to fire police officers. We don't want them to fire firefighters because they can't afford this. What can we do to incentivize them to actually hire police officers and firefighters? And with the reforms that we put forward, that you thankfully voted for and passed the legislature and were signed by the governor, we're saving communities a lot of money across the state, including New London. And I think what we're seeing now is this is having a good effect. Your police chief stood up there with me and said that he was then going to go out and hire additional police officers to be there in the community and support the community because of this. And I've heard great stories like that around the state. But at the end of the day, it's making this more affordable for towns, which is really making tax paying more affordable for citizens because of the property tax burden that they're facing.
Now, you got that table of people together. I mean, that seems like it would have been a contentious group to get together. How did that go?
Well, you know this, when you get everybody around a table and you sort of put your ego aside and you put your party affiliation aside and you sort of say, we're all going to sit here until we can find a compromise. Most of the time you can get that done. Washington doesn't do that. But city councils do that, state representatives do that, you do that, and committee chairs do that, by the way, which you know a thing or two about now. That's what we did. And not everybody liked the plan, but everyone gave something in order to preserve something bigger than themselves. And that's what happened. This plan saves the state $740 million over the next 30 years. 107 of the 169 towns in Connecticut are part of MERS, so this is 2/3 of our towns. And you have the numbers there. I mean, this saved New London a lot of money.
And that's what I was going to talk about next. This says New London can save up to $950,000 in the next fiscal year and $28.6 million over 30 years. That's a lot.
It's big money. It's big money and it's having a big impact. And like your chief said, and like the mayor said, you know, a community like New London, this is a big deal for them because that savings allows them to meet other critical needs that otherwise they were going to have a hard time doing.
It's such a no-brainer. Why was it so hard to do?
I think so much of what we run into in government sometimes is people think they can't accomplish big things anymore. They see the division, they see the fractious nature, and they're sometimes afraid to take on big things. I'm not some genius and I'm not Harry Potter. I just got everybody around the table together and got them to actually focus on this. And we reformed this system for the first time in my lifetime. I'm 36. This hasn't been changed since 1949. So this reform was long overdue. And sometimes the lesson for me is if you just try, you can get stuff done that you maybe didn't think you'd get done. And nobody believed we would get this done. But it's trying that's half the battle. And unless you try, you never get anything done.
And as I'm reading on, it talks about COLA will be calculated differently.
So the big reason that we're able to save is because we're changing not the benefits of the plan, but the way the benefits are calculated. And what was costing the towns so much money was that, number one, people got the COLA the day they retired, which is tough, right, for us in a plan. This changed it so that you have to wait a year till you get your first COLA. But then what was on the books now, before this law passed, was that there was a guaranteed COLA, a guaranteed minimum COLA of 2.5%. No matter what was happening with the plan, no matter what was happening with the economy, everyone got a guaranteed minimum of 2.5%. That was unsustainable and unaffordable. Right. We still believe in COLAs. I was raised by a law enforcement family, so I understand the importance of a pension, but saying that we're going to give a 2.5% guaranteed COLA no matter what's going on was just not sustainable. So what we did was we actually raised the ceiling of it so that in bad times with inflation, people will still get a big COLA, but we just took away that guarantee. But it still means that most of the time you're still going to get a COLA. And those two changes alone were the bulk of our savings, in addition to incentivizing people to work longer by giving what's called a drop plan, which basically says that if you agree to defer your retirement for a few years, we're going to set aside in cash what you would have gotten through your monthly pension check, and we give you that in a lump sum when you retire. So if you say to your wife, hey, honey, I think I'm going to work 3 more years, and at the end of that 3 more years, I'm going to get this big check, and we can go buy that lake house or a beach house or a boat or whatever you want to do to celebrate your retirement, you'd have that option. And it sounds like we spend a lot more money, but we actually save money by doing that.
And that's the deferred retirement option?
That's the drop plan. Yeah.
Okay. How about the unfunded accrued liability?
Yeah. So right now we were projecting to pay everything back in 17 years. And what we did was basically elongated those pension payments to pay it back over 25 years.
Okay.
That sounds to folks listening maybe like we're kicking the can, right? But when you pair that with the other things that we're doing, it's actually not kicking the can. It's just allowing us to pay it back longer and then taking care of things in the short term. So it allows towns to save money in the short run while not shortchanging people in the long run because we're taking care of other things. And so those 3 things combined get you close to the $740 million that we actually are going to see from saving this. And again, that's a big deal to communities like New London and cities and towns across the state.
So in regards to the data that's collected, from the municipalities in order to get to where we are today.
Yeah.
Was that a struggle? Were the municipalities willing to?
Part of this law was trying to find out what are those other 62 towns doing, right? And how can we try to incentivize them to join MERS so that with more people, the cost will go down even more. And we need to find out what those other towns were doing in order to figure out how we can try to attract them. And part of what we're doing now is that we're putting together what we call MERS 2.0, which would be a second tier of MERS. The state employee plan right now and the state employee pension system, we have 4 tiers. There's only been 1 tier of MERS since 1949. So we were kind of due for another tier. And what that would mean is if you're a police officer or a public works person hired after a certain date, you would go into MERS 2 instead of MERS 1. And it's just one more way that the towns can save money while still offering that pension. These workers are working really hard. They're sacrificing a lot to work for maybe lower pay than they would in the private sector. I still believe pensions are important. Right. And this will allow us to actually have the longevity to be able to afford them in the future. And that's what this is all about.
Well, I appreciate all the hard work that you put into it, and especially for New London. And I'll just repeat, New London is looking to save up to towards $950,000, $28 million in the next approximately 30 years. Yeah. This is something that's showing Connecticut advancing in what we're doing. And I just want to thank you for taking the time to let me come over to the office and get this information out, because it's all about educating our communities, and you continually do that at a high standard, and I just appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate all the work you did and your vote to make this happen and all of your great work. It's been a pleasure to work with you as a state rep and now as the comptroller.
Thank you.